gift that God is lavishing on Jonah, the gift of grace. Now, what I've loved this week is as I've sat in chapter 4, I've loved Jonah's, what I would call teenage attitude. Teenage attitude. He's quite dramatic, right? And I wonder if you, maybe you know someone, maybe it's the person sat next to you, maybe it's a work colleague, maybe it's a friend who can be quite dramatic. We've all got tendencies to be dramatic, right? I have to admit I was quite a dramatic 13-year-old. I think that's prime time, right? I remember the once coming back from the hairdressers with quite an unfortunate haircut. I'd asked for a trim and I'd come home with a bob. And I got home and I was just unconsolable. And I yelled to my mum, "I'm just going to shave my head. I'm just going to shave it off." Maybe you've had moments like that. I remember the once, I think I was a bit younger than 13, but I wanted to wear heels to the park. Mum was like, "You're not wearing heels to the park." And I was like, "I'm never wearing shoes again." I wonder if you have had those moments, or maybe you've got people in your life that have moments like that. This is what Jonah is reminding me of as he asks these questions to God. I love in verse 3, "Now take my life away, for it's better for me to die than to live." He's so angry. He's so upset. He's so riled. He cannot believe that God would save Nineveh. "I'd rather die than live." And yet, it's quite ironic, right, when we think about the story of Jonah, when we reflect back on chapter 2, when we realize that Jonah calls out to God in a time of distress, and God saves him. God rescues him with a giant fish. I love his prayer, his cry. "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you listened to my cry." Jonah knew who God was. Jonah had been saved before. A bit later on, verse 7, "When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you in your holy temple." He remembered who God was. And he remembers him again at the start of this chapter. "I know that you're gracious and compassionate. I know that." And so why does he struggle so much with this gift of grace? This gift of grace bestowed to him, but he cannot believe it when it's bestowed to somebody else. The gift of grace is phenomenal. It is mind-blowing. And I think in this chapter we are encouraged again to be reminded of God's mercy and grace in a whole new way. It's a gift that we freely receive, but it's often a gift we resist giving. And this morning I want us to spend just a bit of time being reminded again of this gift of grace. I want it to become for us again a sweet, sweet sound. When was the last time that you sat and thought about the gift of grace and it was sweet to your heart, it was sweet to your soul? Tim Keller, in his book, says that the main purpose of this book in Jonah is to understand grace. Jonah failed to understand the mystery of it, and so no wonder we do. No wonder we do. Grace is God's undeserved love, forgiveness, favor. It's the kindness of being saved. It's the kindness that we are forgiven, but it's ridiculous that he paid the price. It's ridiculous that he paid the price. And when we realize again that our salvation, the reason why we're here, the reason why we're living and being and glorifying God, it cost Jesus his glory in heaven, his life on earth. He endured immeasurable suffering, all to set us free, all to give us the gift of grace. Ephesians 2 said, "But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in our sin. It is by grace that you have been saved." It is by grace that you have been saved. This gift of grace that we so often talk and sing about should be mind-blowing, life-altering, heart-stopping, game-changing truth. And that's what I want us to think about today. That's what I want us to go home, holding on to this gift of grace. Charles Wesley writes about it in the famous hymn. Let me read these lyrics out to you. He left his Father's throne above, so free, so infinite his grace, emptied himself of all but love, and bled for Adam's helpless race. 'Tis mercy all immense and free, for oh my God, it found out me. Long my imprisoned spirit lay, fast bound in sin and nature's night. Thine eye diffused a quickening ray. I woke, the dungeon flamed with light. My chains fell off, my heart was free. I rose, went forth, and followed thee. And I was thinking about this hymn a lot over the last few days, and as we gathered as a team to pray this morning, there was quite a lot of words about this word imprisoned. Like God was really speaking about someone maybe feeling trapped or feeling imprisoned. And I wanted to pray this morning that you know that you're seen by God, if that's how you're feeling. But also hear this, when he says, I woke, the dungeon flamed with light. Jesus meets you there. And our chains fell off and our heart was free. I rose, went forth, and followed thee. So I pray, if that's how you're feeling this morning, that you would know the light of Christ and the gift of grace for you. I want to try and explain, really bring home the idea of grace with a story. It's about parking tickets. It's made up. It's nothing to do with me, I promise. But I did think it was quite ironic talking about parking tickets with the All Saints community. We spend quite a lot of time cancelling them. But I want you to imagine maybe one of the days that you decide to park on double yellows because you think, I'll be quick. I won't be that long. I'm only popping into town. I'm sure it'll be fine. And as you walk back to the car, you see a traffic warden ready, slapping that yellow sign on your windscreen. And you run over and you realise, do you know what? There's no point arguing. I hold my hands up. Shouldn't have parked there. You're absolutely right. And you get in the car, you take the ticket out, and you pay it. You pay it, right? Now, what's that? That's justice. Justice is served. We did something wrong. We pay for our actions. We know we shouldn't have done it. Now, what about the next time you do it? You think again, I've just got to drop one thing to the charity shop. I will literally be 2 minutes. I'm just going to park here. I'm sure it'll be fine. And as you run back to the car, again, you see the traffic warden ready to slap that parking ticket. And you apologise again. Oh, no, it's happened again. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done it. You're right. I was wrong. I'm really, really sorry. And the traffic warden, the ticket officer, goes, okay. Do you know what? This time I'm going to let you off with a warning. I won't issue it for you. Now, what would we call that? Would we call it grace? No, that's mercy. That's mercy. Not getting what you deserve. I deserved it, but I didn't get it. He said, you know what? I'll let you off. I'll let you off. So what happens on the third time? The third time that you're parking thinking, I won't be long, I'm just going to pop in. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. You run back. The ticket is on the windscreen wiper. And you realise this time, oh, I'm done for. I'm done for. There's no point even saying anything. And as you approach the car and you say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sure it's worse this time. This is the third time it's happened. Well, then what happens is the ticket officer takes the ticket off the windscreen, pays it himself, and then empties his whole wallet into your hand. Says, go and get yourself another coffee. It's okay. That's grace. He's paid the price, but he's given us far more than we could ask or imagine. He's gone above and beyond. And we see that in the work of Jesus, in the gift of grace. Not only did he pay the price that we deserve, but he went above and beyond. And we are now set free, cleansed, pure, holy, blameless, washed white as snow. He's given us far more than we could ask or imagine. And did we earn it? No. Did we deserve the wrath? Yes. And yet, it is given for us not because we are good, not because we've earned it on our best behavior. Actually, it's the exact opposite. Jesus paid the price, and now we receive his righteousness. He became sin so that we would know the righteousness of God. When the Father sees us, he sees the Son. How incredible is the gift of grace, guys? How amazing, how mind-blowing is it? How sweet the sound. But the thing that is unsettling about grace is that it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel fair. Grace is unmerited favor. And we want it for ourselves, right? We know we need a savior. We know we need the gift of grace. But it is costly to give. It is costly. Grace is the gift we want for ourselves. And it's interesting, isn't it, that Jonah knew that God was all these things, that he was gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in love. But Jonah thought that grace should be limited to people like him. People he approved of. People he thought deserved it. His people. And Jonah's angry because God showed compassion to people he hated. He liked God's mercy and grace when it rescued him, but resented it when it rescued Nineveh. I think for me, this exposes the human heart. To believe that God's grace for me is justice, but God's grace for others is unfair. And we live in a society, in a world, don't we, where everywhere we look, media, news, social media, all these different platforms, where we're encouraged to see people as other, the other group, the other people. And actually, we can so easily demonize the other. We see, don't we, regions hating one another, political parties despising one another, and us and their mentality. The story of Jonah opens our eyes. And it makes us ask the question, who are the Ninevites for us? Who are the people that we don't feel deserve compassion and grace and forgiveness? Who are the people that we don't feel like deserve a second chance? But if our compassion is going to resemble anything close to God's, we've got to abandon this cozy worldview. And we too must offer grace when it's costly. Because I think grace can expose so much in us. Just like Jonah, we want grace when we're drowning. We want God to save us. We want the big fish to come. But we're quick to judge others. Have we become experts at receiving grace and amateurs at extending it? Have we become experts at receiving grace and amateurs at extending it? Grace confronts our heart. And one of the things I've been loving this week is that question that God asks Jonah. Is it right for you to be angry? Is it right for you to be angry? God asks good questions, guys. Really good questions. I heard someone say the other week that Jesus asks 307 questions. He is asked 183, but he answers only 3. Isn't that interesting? Jesus asked a lot of questions. And I know that God asks me a lot of questions too. But this is a hard one, right? Do you do well to be angry? Is it right for you to be angry? In that question, God is wanting to reveal the truths in Jonah's heart. God's not asking it for information. He's asking it so Jonah can be transformed. God's offering Jonah to examine the motives in his heart. God doesn't want to silence Jonah in his rage, his anger, his confusion. He wants to engage with Jonah. He wants to move towards Jonah. The thing with grace, though, it is costly. It's costly. And showing grace to others is costly. Right? We know that to be true. We know that to be true. And often when you're preaching something, God gives you opportunities to practice that giving of grace, that gift. And I've been away this week, and God had really been working through some stuff with me. God had been asking me a lot of different questions. And lots of them were around my longing and desire to meet someone, to be married, to have a partner. And God was doing the deep work this week, guys. Wasn't pretty, but we have to allow him to go there, right? And so I'd gone and got prayer, and I'd had a cry, I'd had a moment, I'd given God some things, and it was beautiful. And I come back to my seat, and I get talking to I hadn't yet spoken to. And we get talking, and she's really excited. And she was like, I don't know what's going to happen this weekend. I was like, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? And she's like, I think my boyfriend's going to propose to me. And I sat there, and in that moment, I knew I had two options. To wrap up the conversation quickly and find somebody else to talk to. And guys, that is exactly what I wanted to do. I thought, I don't want to know the details. I don't want to know how you met. I don't want to know how lovely it is. Actually, I just want to run. But I felt the Holy Spirit whisper, what would the gift of grace look like in this moment? What would the gift of grace? And I thought, Lord, don't make me practice this, please. And it was costly. And I sat and I listened and I asked the questions, and some of the things she shared were painful to hear. And yet I sat there, and God gave me the ability to be able to pray for her and be excited with her, even though that wasn't my lived experience right now. And so, guys, I want to say that extending grace is costly. And I have been in moments where I've thought, how come they get it and I don't? How come they receive that gift and I don't? How come they get healing and I don't? How come they're blessed and I'm not? How come they have children and I don't? How come I can't afford this and they can? All of it are questions of our heart. And I want to ask you this morning, what question is God asking you? And where is he asking you to extend grace? You see, grace forms us. And grace confronts in us the depths of our hearts. Because actually it's there that we most need it. In those darkest moments, in our darkest thoughts, in the questions we don't want to say out loud to anyone, that's where grace is needed the most. It's interesting, isn't it, that with this story of Jonah, what's revealed towards the end of this passage is that Jonah actually cared more about this plant covering him and giving him shade than he did this city, this 120,000 souls. It's God's grace that God sends a plant to come and shade him. And do you know what? I also think it's God's grace that he sent the worm to confront in him, okay, what do you value? What do you value here? Where is your heart? Because this gift of grace actually does reveal what we value most. Jonah did nothing to deserve that plant, but Nineveh did nothing to receive that gift of grace. And yet, when they cried out, God was gracious and compassionate. He is a kind God, full of mercy and grace. He weeps over this city. He is desperate to save them. And I know so many times I've said, what, they deserve it. And I don't. They deserve this grace. And I don't. It's exactly where Jonah is right now. Because the gift of grace doesn't always seem fair, but that is why it's a gift. That is why it's a gift. I wonder what things God is doing in your heart right now. Maybe it feels like you're in a season of like, yes, God's given me a plant and I'm basking in the shade. Oh, what grace. Maybe you're sat in despair because the worm has come and eaten the plant. And you're angry and you're hurt and you're cross at God. You see, the gift of grace is that it comes when we need it the most. When we need it the most. And what's beautiful is that this gift of grace shows us God's heart for the lost. How desperate he is to save us. Jesus on the cross said, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they're doing." You see, Jonah was angry that God had spared this sinful city. And yet Jesus wept over a sinful city. Jonah sat outside the city, hoping for wrath and judgment. And Jesus hung on a cross outside the city, giving salvation to all. Jesus is the better Jonah. That's been a theme all throughout this book, all throughout this series. Jesus is the better Jonah. And I think as we think about what this means for us, this gift of grace, I think it's asking us to maybe reorder some of our priorities. Because grace is meant to be shared. What would it look like to move towards rather than away? What would it look like to show grace instead of revenge? What would it look like to choose God's mission over our own preferences? God says to Jonah, "Should I not have compassion on Nineveh? Should I not have compassion on my children?" I'd say this is the heartbeat of the book. That grace is not a reward because it cannot be earned. It's a gift from God. And it's scandalous, and it's undeserved, and it's unmerited. And yet he freely gives it to you and to me. The end of this book that we've been reading, Tim Keller on Jonah, there's this last little page about, who would have written it? Who would have written this story? And Tim Keller says, I think it's got to be Jonah, right? Who else would be able to admit all of that? His attitude, his anger. Who else would leave it on a cliffhanger? Who else could be that selfish and self-centered and openly admit it? But he goes on to say, I think you can write that after you've had an encounter with grace. After you've had an encounter with grace, when you realize, I am sinful and broken, when you know you are in need of saving, when you are completely lost, and you find in Jesus that you are completely loved and accepted. That is the gospel of grace. And I think that gift of grace demands a response from us. Will we align our hearts with God's? And will we extend the gift of grace that we have freely received? Jonah is a mirror to us, revealing to us our own broken tendencies. And yet it's also a huge, pointing, shiny arrow towards Jesus, the one who gives us this gift of grace. Jesus took that which you deserved. He paid the price. He received what we should have received. And now, because of all that he did for us on the cross, we walk holy and pure and blameless in right relationship. Grace is unsettling because it's not fair. It's not fair. And yet we get to live as people that receive the gift of grace. And we come humbly, knowing that we need a Saviour. But grace doesn't leave you unchanged. Grace doesn't leave you unchanged. I don't think it left Jonah unchanged. And so if grace isn't just a gift we receive, if grace is also something that we reflect, I want us to do something a bit different this morning as we respond. I want us to pray for one another. And I want us to look at each other in the eye and say, receive the gift of grace today. Receive the gift of grace today. Because we need to be told, that sometimes we need to be told, you're going to receive the gift of grace today. But I think there is something beautiful about us being a community that reminds each other of the gift of grace. And I don't want anyone to walk away this morning not feeling seen. And so if there's someone on their own, that's your job to make sure they're not. And so I want us to get into threes. And I want you to ask, is it okay if I place a hand on your shoulder? And if they say yes, place a hand on their shoulder. And there's a little slide for this. Then I want you to say their name. It's okay if you don't know their name, just ask. Maybe just say it anyway so it's not awkward. Say their name, look them in the eye and say, may you receive the gift of grace today. And if you feel comfortable, maybe pray a one-line prayer. Maybe something God's going to give you for that person. Is that okay? I know it's scary, but guys, we've got to receive this gift of grace. So let's get into threes now. Threes would be great. Ask them their names, share their names. You can stand, you can move into space. And then I want you to look at them and say, receive the gift of grace today. Amen.